Does Masteron cause hair loss? We hear it's DHT derived, but does it cause hair loss? Stay tuned. I'll let you know. I created Species Nutrition with one mission in mind: to provide bodybuilders and serious athletes with no-nonsense supplements that work. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution.
RX Television, RxMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, your weekly 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. Whatever is on your mind, be it bodybuilding, non-bodybuilding, diet, training, supplementation, this is your forum to get your questions answered. Wherever you are, we're glad you could join us on this, the second day of July in the year 2025. We're going to go right into the questions. The first two questions on this show from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. First question: how often do you recommend doing your male, and I know you have plans for males and females, your male superset plan that you have in your app?
Well, before I answer that question, I want to thank my friend John Manello, who's a Comic-Con freak, and Jaws, as you know, has hit its 50th anniversary, and he sent me this classic t-shirt from Jaws. This was the actual poster of the Jaws movie. It was also the front cover of the book, and I remember as a kid being obsessed with the Jaws and that picture. And we used to, in school, we would all draw this shark with the woman. That was like the thing that everyone would draw all the time and try to see who can come up with the best shark. And so I'm not a white t-shirt guy, but I got to wear this because this is cool. This is real classic. So thank you, John Manello. And he sent me a bunch of other ones too that I might wear along the way on the different shows. But getting back to the question, on the Dave Palumbo Experience app, I have all my workouts uploaded there. One of the workouts is which was the
for the male, male superset, yeah.
Oh, superset. So yeah, so what I like to do is I do a pretty much standard workout all the time. You know, it's a 5-day split. You know, each one body part each day. You know, 2 days off a week. But sometimes people get a little stale, and I put together a superset like type workout. So it's the same type of exercises, but it's like alternating between maybe buys and tries rather than doing straight sets of buys and then straight sets of tries. And, what I recommend doing is, either you can do it every once in a while, this workout, or you can do it for like 6 weeks, just to give yourself a break. I don't want to do the straight sets. I'm going to do supersetting and do it for 6 weeks and then go back to more straight sets. Once again, it just mixes things up a little bit. Sometimes I do this also like when I'm pre-contest, because I want the weight training sessions to go a little faster, and I'm kind of, just stagnant, and I'm hungry. So I'll do the superset workouts as well. Doesn't mean you shouldn't rest between sets. It just means that you're doing 2 exercises at a time. So you might do reverse grip pull downs for triceps, and then you might do, bicep cable curls for biceps. Then you rest. And it seems to be popular. Once again, if you do it all the time, it's not going to work. But to mix it up in there, it's a nice little shock to your body. And I like I said, I like to once in a while mix things up.
Second question, again, these first two from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. Question about just general water intake, your normal recommended amount of water intake. So if you want to on a daily basis, during training, before, after, however you want to splice this.
Yeah, I mean, I hate the guy who works, the people who walk around with the water jugs. I wouldn't do that. To me, it's annoying. But if you have trouble getting enough fluid in during the day because you forget to drink all day long, or maybe you're very busy, or maybe, for whatever reason, it's not a bad idea. A gallon a day is usually enough, unless you're outside sweating profusely all day long. I don't measure the amount of liquid I take in per day. when I'm thirsty, I drink, and I try to, when I drink, I swallow. Like if I'm going to swallow like a bunch of vitamins, I'll drink 8 ounces of water with it. I'll gulp down 8 ounces. When I wake up in the morning, I take my thyroid meds in the morning. But even before I did that, I always drink 8 ounces of water, usually spun water that's also got, hydrogenated, because all my little water filters I have. But so I'm constantly downing water. I just don't over drink, because I think when you over drink, okay, and a lot of people think I don't know why they have this warped view of thinking that the more water you drink, the more fat you'll burn. That's not the case. In fact, if you drink too much water, you're going to water down your electrolytes, which is your potassium and sodium. And a lot of times that can cause cramping. So you don't want to matter of fact, there's a condition in nursing homes where people, I don't know, it's like some kind of psychosis where people they always feel thirsty. They're excessively thirsty. And these women, a lot of times it happens in women, they'll drink so much that they actually die because they water their electrolytes so much down that they go into spasm and they actually die. It's happened. I forget, hypernatremia, and I don't remember the name of the condition. But so don't overdo the water, but at the same time, make sure you're getting enough fluid in. Now, if you're drinking like a lot of diet, like, Sprite or diet, like, I drink a lot of diet ginger ale, that's still considered fluid. You can't, it doesn't have to be a gallon of water a day. It's nice to drink water during the day, but it doesn't have to all be water. As long as you're getting enough liquids in, your body is still going to use that to hydrate itself. Obviously, if you're drinking coffee all day long, which acts as a diuretic, that's not, I wouldn't necessarily count all that as liquid. But as far as just fluids, they don't have to be pure water, as long as there's no sugar in them, because sugar dehydrates you. I don't know any bodybuilder that would be stupid enough to drink, a sugary drink during the day. It's the dumbest waste of calories of all time. If I'm going to drink, if I want something with taste in it, I drink diet soda or something like that, or some sort of diet iced tea or something like that, or amino evolved. Never drink pure sugar. It's the dumbest, stupidest thing. It messes up your blood sugars. It messes up your brain function. It's not good for you. You stress out your pancreas because it's got to produce a lot of insulin, and it usually makes you fat. So once again, drink, but don't overdrink.
Well, what are your takes on like Gatorade Zero? That seems to be popular.
I like that too. Although I'll tell you something, Sid, but the Gatorade Zero, I become very cognizant of the coloring agents they put in there. They use the red, because I used to like the red one, the fruit punch one, but they put that red dye 40 or whatever it's in there that's supposed to be terrible for you. So now I use Propel. Propel has a zero sugar. And it's funny because Propel is made by Gatorade, or Gatorade owns Propel. Maybe they bought them. And that's perfectly clear. It looks like water, but it has a nice taste to it. I keep those in my car. I drink them in the gym. So try the Propels that are 0 calories, 0 sugar. Those are much better. Now, these are good questions. And once again, they seem simplistic, but they're really good because a lot of people have they're wondering the same things. How much should I drink? Don't restrict salt. Don't restrict fluids. Don't overdrink. Do everything in balance. And then guess what? Your body won't hyper-react to everything that you're doing following these insane things you do. I see people drinking 5 gallons of water a day. I'm like, you're out of your mind. Or I see people doing no sodium a whole diet. It's insane. These are questions that I answer on a regular basis on the Dave Palumbo Experience app. If you haven't downloaded it, you can download it on your Android phone or your iPhone via iTunes and the App Store there. It's $29 a month. You get me as your coach in your back pocket. Essentially, all my writings, all my videos are in one place. All my protocols, workouts, drug protocols, men, women, off season, pre-contest, beginners, advanced. I answer everyone's questions in an open forum, so everyone sees everyone's questions and answer. It's a great learning experience. I do a Q&A video just for the app members every single week. So it's like an extra Ask Dave. It's a great learning experience. It's like you're constantly evolving. Every time new stuff comes out, I address it in the app. And I think it's a great way to keep up to date and not have to go scouring the internet for, hey, is this stuff good? Is this not good? Is this good information, bad information? It's all in the app, and you can if it's in that app, it's 100% legit. And it's a service I've been doing for the last couple of years, and I want to thank you guys for all your support.
Before we go to the rest of the questions, our friends at Titan Medical Center. Now, just to give you a heads up, Species Nutrition will also be having a July 4th special. We'll be announcing it within the course of the next 48 hours. But Titan Medical themselves have a July 4th weekend special as well. $130 for male panels, $200 for females. For males, is usually $200, so $70 off. For females, it's $100 off. That service is usually $300.
Yeah, so a lot of people, don't have health insurance, and or they don't want to go to the doctor for whatever reason, or they have crappy health insurance. And bodybuilders should get regular blood work. I'd say at least every 6 months, without a doubt, once a year. You know what I mean? But every 6 months is usually a good. If you're neurotic, every 3 months. But if you don't have insurance, which is that's your own personal choice, you don't want to pay for it. I understand that. You have to get blood work, so you're gonna have to pay for it somewhere. And Titan's panels are so all-inclusive. They really have all the right stuff in the panel that we're looking to see and check. And to have $70 off first of all, their normal price is very cheap compared to what you would pay if you went to Quest. And then with the discount, it's like they're giving it to you for below cost. But a lot of times, when people do these panels and they find they have deficiencies, they obviously will go to Titan and say, hey, look, I was referred for Dave Palumbo, RxMuscle, Ask Dave, and I want to get on some therapies to help with some of these, abnormalities that have my blood work. So it works both ways for them and for you, but they're offering this really cheap. If you don't have insurance, I highly recommend doing it now while they have this sale. It's good to know. A lot of people are going to start, in the fall, their off-season mass building, after their contest prep is over. Good time to get some baseline blood work done.
So we'll take questions now from primarily our YouTube community page. Again, we've really enjoyed the interaction and the engagement that we've gotten on that page for this show and for the other content that we've been putting up. We also are going to be putting up a lot more short form content now on the YouTube channel, between our studio content, between some of our contest coverage. We've accumulated a lot of short form content. So we're going to be putting that up a lot more in detail. So again, you're going to get long form, you're going to get short form. And then again, the primary source for questions on this show on Ask Dave is going to be from our YouTube community page. So with that, first question is about T3. Is it detrimental or beneficial to take T3 if having hypothyroidism? Oh, you know what? We got this question last time. I'm sorry. So scratch that. My bad. Let's go to the next one. Do DHT-derived anabolics like Masteron cause more hair loss than non-DHT drugs due to a higher conversion of DHT?
Yeah, there's a misnomer a lot of times that people don't realize that these Masteron is not really DHT derived. They don't really use DHT to make Masteron. The molecule itself, the Masteron molecule, looks a little like DHT, but it's not DHT, and it's not made from DHT. But that's a misnomer. In my experience, of using pretty much every anabolic on the market, because there are no new ones, essentially, Masteron does not cause hair loss, or it's minimal, if anything. I mean, anything can theoretically cause hair loss. Any kind of androgen can cause hair loss, but it seems to be very, very minimal. The drugs that cause hair loss are the drugs that convert directly to dihydrotestosterone, or DHT. Testosterone would be, the biggest converter. The good thing is that you can take things that inhibit the conversion of testosterone into DHT. You can do something like Testalize. You can use finasteride. You can use dutasteride. We're going to be going into a very deep dive on this topic with Dr. Todd Lee. I did a great interview with him for Guru Talk. There'll be a few parts of that going up this coming week and in the following weeks. And I think you guys are really going to enjoy some of the deep dive we did into that. But yeah, no, Masteron is pretty safe for hair.
Question about, we do get a lot of questions about from an older audience, or, training techniques or protocols that apply to an older audience. Do men over 50 need to lift lighter weights and higher reps? People are telling me to stop doing squats, bent over rows, deadlifts. They say at 50, I'm asking for an injury by lifting heavy 6 to 12 reps and doing compound movements.
If you're healthy and you don't have injuries and you lift with good form and control, there's no reason to lighten weights up purposely. High reps don't build muscle. They don't even preserve muscle. That's the sad part. So, what I do is I lift exactly like I lifted when I was competing at, 270 pounds. I just don't lift as heavy weights because I'm not as strong, because I'm smaller. So when I go to do inclined, dumbbell bench press, dumbbell presses, I'm using, 75s at max because I can't lift anything heavier than that because I'm only 205 pounds. All right. If I could lift 80, I would do 80s, but I do 6 reps with 75s, which I think is pretty damn good considering that I couldn't do 10 pounds because I needed shoulder replacements. Now I have new shoulders and I can do them with good form, under control. And I get a lot out of it because for me, it feels the muscle is feeling like it's being challenged. Now, if I was stronger and I could do more weight, I would do more weight as long as I can control the weight. If you're doing stupid shit, like I see guys lifting weights where they're doing partial reps, they can't really lift the weights. And those are the people that get hurt. If you can squat at 50 years old, okay, you might not be squatting what you did when you were 25, 600 pounds, but you might be squatting 405 or 450. If you can do it with good form and control, then there's nothing wrong with doing that. Why would you lighten weights and go higher reps and lose muscle purposely? Unless that's your goal. I'm assuming this from the question, this person, that's not their goal. Their goal is to maintain muscle mass. So there's nothing wrong, and like I said, I do all free weights now. Now that I have new shoulders, everything I almost do. If you watch any of my little workouts I put up there, I think we have a day in the life coming up pretty soon that Jesse Peterson shot of me. You're going to see I'm for back. I do all free weight movements. That's what I do because now I can do it and I like the way I feel. I just don't lift as heavy as I used to because once again, I'm not pushing the envelope where I'm going to try to hurt myself. There's no reason for it. I'm not competing. Now, if I was competing, different story. Now, if I was competing and I was doing cycles of stuff, I'd probably be a lot stronger too. So, but I think there's nothing wrong with challenging your body as long as you're not doing anything dangerous. And I think that is the key. People do dangerous crap all the time. I see ballistic type lifting in the gym, which is just super dangerous. And this is nothing against Branch Warren because I love Branch Warren. I think he's a great guy. He was a great bodybuilder. He did more with his physique than I think anyone ever thought possible. But, he's like and I'm sure he doesn't train like this anymore, but he's a ballistic trainer, very, fast, explosive type reps. That probably is not the best way to lift when you're a little older because that could lead to injuries. Now, he has lifted that way his whole life. So I'm sure it's hard for him to change, but he's absolutely not lifting the weights he did when he was, at his peak because he's smarter than that. So just be smart in the gym. You don't have to change the way you are just because someone else says you should. I think that's a big mistake.
Question about muscle maturity. Now, before I ask this question, if you go on our Instagram right now, official_RxMuscle, last night we posted a picture of 22-year-old Nihat Kaya, who right now might be one of the top 212 prospects in the world. He just won at the Dubai Pro. Beat a top 3 Olympian in the process. And, we asked him, after he won, again, what are some of the differences between last year? And he talked about muscle maturity. And I kind of, in my head, I was like, at 22, right? And he started training at the age of 12. But the question, what is a minimal amount of years that it takes to reach muscle maturity naturally? And in your time in this sport, what is sort of that sweet spot age range that you've seen someone hit muscle maturity? Provided they've been training for a number of years.
They say to be a master in anything that you do in life, not just bodybuilding, but anything you do, you need to do it for 10 years. That's what they say. And I believe that. I think that when you do something for 10 years, you become an expert at it, whether you want to or not. And I think that's the truth of bodybuilding. I think in bodybuilding, when you've been lifting for 10 years, your body has a different look, even if you're not that big. So I've seen guys that are smaller guys that are all natural that have lifted for 10 years and they have a different look to their body than a person who just starts, even a person who just starts who's on anabolic steroids. It's like a denser look to the body. It's like a more groovy look to the muscle. The muscles have more curves in them. And we call that muscle maturity. Now, this guy, Balat is a genetic freak, but he's been lifting for almost 10 years, if you think about it. So that's, that I think that's what he means. Like his body is coming into its own, has a different, more mature look. Whereas most people start at his age, or start at 18, 19 years old, and it takes until they're 28 to hit muscle maturity. So, in a sense, he's got an edge. Now, this guy's also a genetic freak on top of, what I'm telling you here in terms of muscle maturity, which, you can't discount. I mean, it's like the Cody Montgomery fact. Cody Montgomery won the team nationals 3 years in a row. He had a different look to his body. He just was I don't know, more mature than everyone else, and he had better genetics. Kai Green comes to mind too. The guy had the separation in his quads probably the first day he started lifting. That's just the way his body was built genetically. But for most people, after 10 years, you get a different look to your body than you did when you first started training, no matter how big you are. So when I got really big after 5 years, I put 100 pounds of muscle on in 5 years. I looked huge, but I didn't have the muscle maturity that I had 5 yeyears later, if that makes sense.
Question about Lantis. Let me pull it up real quick. Should we avoid using Lantis or other insulins if we're taking IGF-1 LR3?
No, long ART3, IGF-1, which is insulin-like growth factor. The reason they call it insulin-like growth factor is it doesn't really have, it can have an insulin, it can bind to insulin receptors because it looks similar to insulin. And so it can lower blood sugar a little bit. It almost acts like a fast-acting insulin when you first take it. Now, the receptors you want the IGF-1 to bind to are the IGF-1 receptors, which are on damaged muscle fibers. But when you flood your body with IGF-1, some of it invariably binds to regular insulin receptors and pushes glucose into the bloodstream. That's why you can sometimes get like a hypoglycemia or a low blood sugar effect from taking your shot of IGF-1. But that's a very short-term effect. It only affects you for about an hour or so, and then it's gone. It's like taking like a fast-acting insulin. So Lantis is a long-acting insulin. So it's not going to, it kind of works in the background, so to speak. If you were taking a fast-acting insulin with the IGF-1, you might want to lower the dose a little because they kind of both do the same thing quickly, and that could really drop blood sugar too low. Back in the day when I was doing IGF-1, I was taking insulin with it too, but I was eating a lot of carbs, post-workout. I was having 100 grams of carbs, like an ultra fuel, which at the time was 100 grams of carbs. And I'd mix it with like 40, 50 grams of whey protein or Metric shake. And so I was getting plenty of carbs to both accommodate the IGF-1 and the insulin. Taking a long-acting insulin should have no effect on what you do with the IGF-1. It's because, like I said, it's working in the background. It's not working very aggressively. It's kind of just getting rid of what we call the basal metabolic requirements of insulin, meaning that the sugar that's being kind of trickled into the bloodstream through the liver, converting glycogen into glucose, or through gluconeogenesis, which is the liver or kidney's ability to turn amino acids into glucose. That's what Lantis, the long-acting insulins, handle. The short-acting or the fast-rising blood glucose levels are handled by quick-acting insulin. And if you're not taking a fast-acting insulin, it's your body's release of insulin very rapidly that will bring those blood sugars down. Both accomplish the same thing. So, no, I really wouldn't worry about mixing basal insulin like Lantis with IGF-1.
Last year, in the run-up to the Olympia, before Nick Walker and his coach decided they were not going to compete at the Olympia, we did an episode of Iron Debate, and you pointed out the fact that there was a lack of social media activity out of Nick Walker, and you said that may have been a red flag. Well, this year it's been a remarkable contrast from that. Obviously, we saw two great showings, Pittsburgh and New York. The question is, what do you make right now of Nick Walker in terms of his physique, in terms of what you've seen, what you saw in Pittsburgh, but then also just as far as, again, him more regularly posting very transparent physique updates?
Well, I think Nick is back to where he was mentally, prior to this little hiccup he had in his career, which everyone goes through, by the way. Everyone has a little downtrodden. They try something, it doesn't work, and they don't look right. And I think he got back to his roots, heavy lifting, being the freak on stage. He has a lot of confidence now after placing second at Pittsburgh and winning the New York Pro, requalifying for the Olympia. Everyone's talking about him. He looked, he was close to his best. And that's a big confidence boost for him. And he realizes that his biggest moneymaker is not competing on a bodybuilding stage. It's social media. And people want to know what he's doing. For some reason, he's very compelling and very charismatic. And he has to play into that. That was what, I don't know who told me, but I kind of just knew intuitively. I said, you know what? I might not win the Olympia, or I might not, ever be a great pro bodybuilder. But I knew I could make money because for some reason, the fans were attracted to the freak factor that I had. The fact that I was always lean, that I was one of the biggest guys. So I played into my strengths, and I used that and leveraged it to make money in the industry and become popular. And I think that's what Nick has to do. If he ever wins the Olympia, that's great. That's a feather in his cap, but he doesn't have to win an Olympia to be one of the most popular bodybuilders on the planet. And that's what's going to make him way more money than winning the Olympia. His ego wants him to win the Olympia. And look, we all as fans want to see him win the Olympia, but if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. Who cares? It doesn't really matter. He could win the Arnold Classic this year and win $750,000. To me, that's a lot. That's a huge accomplishment. And that really kind of solidifies him as a great force in bodybuilding. So like I said, I think it's very smart what he's doing. He's posting transparently again. He's like, here I am. This is who I am. Yeah, I have foibles. I fell a little bit from grace. I'm back in the captain's chair again. I'm going into the Olympia, all guns blazing. I'm going to try to win this thing. And the fans love that. And they want to see it and they want to follow it. And me as a fan, I love it too. And I think that was a big mistake for him to come off social media. But obviously he was in a bad mental place. He didn't like the way he looked, and because he had abandoned his roots. And now he's back to it. And I think he's in a good place moving forward.
Kind of a flash from the past question about a fellow Long Island bodybuilder, Dan Lurie. Have you ever gone, first of all, any interactions that you've had with him? And then if you've gone to his store, that's off the Belt Parkway. And I know you haven't been here in quite some time, but if you want to highlight any interactions you had with Dan Lurie, and then yes, if you have visited his store, that's off the Belt Parkway.
I drove by that store 1,000 times. I don't know why I never bothered to get off the exit and go in there and take a look at it. I don't know. I just never did. It was right. If you know where the Southern State Parkway becomes the Belt, it's right there. It was right there on the left side. I doubt it's not there. I doubt it's there anymore because Dan Lurie died.
So how far from Belmont Racetrack?
5 minutes,
Right.
But I'm saying as soon as the Southern State becomes the Belt Parkway, that's where it was. It was right on the left side. And I saw it all the time. And I never stopped there. I only met Dan Lurie once at the beach. Mr. G, I don't know how Mr. G got involved with Steve Mahalik running some kind of bodybuilding competition at the beach. And I went there and Dan Lurie was there. I don't even know what they were doing with Dan Lurie there, but they were doing some kind of shtick. This was at the end of his life. He was very old at this point. And he seemed like a funny guy, but I never really had much of aside from that, it was the only time I ever met Dan Lurie. And he did his own thing. I don't think him and Weider, they didn't get along very well. They were both kind of similar personalities, and they were in competition with each other. And obviously Weider, I think, won that battle, with Lurie. But and if you watch the Brothers in Iron, they have the whole Dan Lurie, Joe Weider kind of I guess you could say competition with each other kind of laid out in that movie. But yeah, I didn't really have much to add to this because I really didn't have any interactions with Dan other than, like I said, when he was an old man.
Couple of TRT related questions to close things out. When talking, I guess this user was talking to his doctor about TRT, and the doctor brought up the risk of heart attack and stroke. What do you think the real chances are of a heart attack and stroke when taking TRT doses?
I mean, let's look at, and I do a lot of consultations with people, a lot of phone consults. I probably do like 5 to 6 or 7 a week. And with a lot of people who have blood work that comes in, and their doctors get them all scared, and they call me up and they said, I want to do and we go through their blood work, and I tell them what they should be concerned about, what they shouldn't be concerned about. But what does testosterone do to the body? It's not liver toxic. Okay, so there's no liver issues, even though liver enzymes are sometimes high on blood work, but that's from working out. Because when we break down muscle tissue and we leak these metabolic enzymes into the bloodstream, they're the same enzymes inside muscle that are inside liver. So you can't differentiate. So people who work out have high enzyme levels on blood work. So that's not a problem. Okay. Testosterone in and of itself is not kidney toxic in any way. Obviously, if you get high blood pressure from taking TRT and you don't address it, that can cause kidney stress. So it's not directly kidney toxic. What causes a heart attack? Well, there's only one thing that really causes a heart attack. Well, 2 things. An arrhythmia, okay, meaning that your rhythm is off, and that's usually genetic, right? So testosterone doesn't cause arrhythmias. And the other reason would be a blockage in the arteries that feed the heart, the coronary arteries that feed the heart with blood, oxygenated blood, so that the heart muscle can function, right? If we have a blockage in there, and that can cause the muscle to die in that area, and that's what we call a heart attack or cardiac infarction. Now, testosterone doesn't cause blood clots, okay? It does increase the viscosity of blood, meaning the thickness of blood, because it increases red blood cell count. So when you take any kind of anabolic or some testosterone, most people, their bone marrow starts producing more red blood cells. But having more red blood cells is not a reason that your body would all of a sudden throw a clot in the coronary arteries, okay? That's not really something that happens. In people who are prone to clots, they might have a clotting disorder, or people who, I don't want to get into the whole COVID thing, but people who had COVID obviously increased clots. Those people might want to donate blood if their blood levels get too high, if the red blood cell count, hemoglobin, hematocrit gets too high. But that's not really something that's going to cause a heart attack. But coronary artery deposits, okay, plaque formation in the coronary arteries can cause a heart attack, right? Because that's a blockage that's permanently there. It's not a blood clot. It's like building up sediment in there that's narrowing these vessels. What causes that? Well, doctors would tell you high cholesterol levels, right? Which is not necessarily the case. We know now that if you have high LDL cholesterol levels, which is the quote bad cholesterol, and you have low or normal triglycerides, which is blood lipids, you're really not prone to laying down coronary artery plaque, okay? If you have high triglycerides and high LDL, more prone. Does steroid usage or testosterone usage, especially TRT, cause high triglycerides and high LDL? No, there's no cause and effect on that whatsoever. It does lower the good cholesterol, HDL, and we don't even know what that means really. Okay, we just know that this happens. We don't necessarily know if it's a bad thing or if it's a good thing. I think it makes the HDLs more efficient, so you don't need as many, and I think that's what it really does. But whatever the case may be, that's neither here nor there. The question is, what causes plaque formation? Bad diet, smoking. Most bodybuilders don't smoke cigarettes, right? We know that. High sugar intake, right, is no good. Causes inflammation in the body, can cause damage to the blood vessel walls. Then they start laying down plaque. But the number one reason why we lay down plaque in the coronary arteries is genetic predisposition, meaning that if you have a family history of laying plaque down in the coronary arteries and getting blockages, you have a much greater chance of getting it if your father and your mother or whoever had it in your family. Because I know people that have the most perfect diets. They don't have any body fat. They eat perfectly. They don't even take steroids, and they have blockages in their coronary arteries. For what reason? No one knows. Their parents had it. That's why. So there's a genetic component. I also know people who don't take care of themselves. They eat terribly. They eat all the wrong foods. They're overweight. They take steroids, and they have absolutely normal cholesterol levels. Usually triglycerides are a little high when you have a bad diet. And they have no plaque formation whatsoever. So to answer the question, I did this in a very long-winded way because I wanted you to see the cause and effects. I hate when doctors say steroids or HRT causes, increase in heart disease and stroke. There's no definitive link to why these things would cause this to happen. If you have a family predisposition, anything, okay, that's going to raise red blood cell count or raise inflammation in the body can actually exacerbate or make it worse. But I don't believe that the TRT dosages are going to cause you to have heart disease. I think you either have heart disease or you don't. It would be like saying, well, I've been on TRT for 10 years, and that's what caused my aortic aneurysm. Well, that's not what caused my aortic aneurysm was caused because two of my father's brothers had it. One of his uncles had it. It runs in the family. Boston Lloyd's father had it, and he got it. That has nothing to do with steroids. Now, if you have high blood pressure, on top of that, from taking steroids, that could make the aortic aneurysm worse. But the point is that the testosterone molecule is not causing strokes and heart attacks. It's your lifestyle and how you manage your lifestyle. So if you have high blood pressure, get it under control. Get on an ACE inhibitor. If you're not sure if you have high cholesterol levels and you're not sure if you have plaque formation, go get a cardiac CT scan. If you're a self-pay and you don't have insurance, it's $100. It takes 5 minutes. You call your radiology place, say, I'm a self-pay. I want to get a cardiac CT calcium score, and you get it. If it comes back high, then you address it. If it comes back normal, then you get nothing to worry about. I have someone who was paranoid about that recently, who I told the exact same thing. He had no insurance. He went and got a cardiac CT calcium score. It came back 0. He has nothing to worry about. all his little psychosomatic pains that he was getting in his chest and all over the place went away the next day once he knew that he had cleared. Everything was clear. Okay, so if you have a genetic predisposition, you know everyone in your family has problems with plaque formation, absolutely, maybe at 30, go get a cardiac CT scan to make sure you're not building up plaque. But the use of anabolics and or testosterone replacement in and of themselves don't cause these problems.
That's going to do for this episode of Ask Dave. Reminder right now, all new episodes of the After Hours podcast, as well as Heavy Muscle Radio. We did want to send a special shout out to Ronnie Coleman, 8-time Mr. Olympia, the king, recovering from his serious medical condition. We so far gotten 2 updates over the last couple of days. One indicating the fact that he, was in the hospital yesterday, getting a little bit more clarification exactly what was going on. But we're certainly hoping that the next update we get is a more positive one, and that certainly we hope to see Ronnie Coleman out of the hospital and doing what he loves to do and being that constant fresh breath of air to the bodybuilding world. So shout out and warmest healing wishes to the king, 8-time Mr. Olympia, Ronnie Coleman. And also special shout out Fouad Abiad doing his first podcast back from the hospital bed. So hoping that for a full and speedy recovery for Fouad.
He stole that from me, by the way. I want to just take credit for that.
Yeah.
He pulled that off of mine. He's like, if Dave can do a podcast from the hospital after getting aorta repair surgery, I'm doing one after I broke my neck. But we love this Fouad. Get better quickly.
No, absolutely. So yeah, again, if you haven't already done so, subscribe below, hit the notification bell. You're not going to miss this or any other show segments that we have coming up on the channel. Right now, we are about trying to think when's the next men's open class show. Is it Tampa? Is it Texas? No, next week. This week actually, Texas, Portugal. Bro. We have Portugal. It was Portugal coming up. Yeah, it's going to have Rubiel Mosquera, Nexzilla, who earned his Olympia qualification, first ever pro victory last week at the Flex Pro. He's going to be going up against Nathan Diasha. Nathan's still unqualified, looking for his ticket to the 2025 Olympia. And then, yes, Texas in about 4 weeks after. So, yeah, now we get into the thick of things. Most of the big names have already qualified, but now you start to see that Mr. Olympia dance card fill out. Again, subscribe below, hit the notification bell so you won't miss our coverage of this and all upcoming shows 3 months leading into the Olympia. For Dave Palumbo, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.